Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, O Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Janavallabha, Jaya Girivardhari, Jaya Girivardhari, 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 Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, O Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, oh Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, oh Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Nityananda Rai, 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 Nityananda Rai, Jaya Nityananda Rai, Nitai He, 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 oh Jaya Sati Nandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Sati Nandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Jaya Sati Nandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Sati Nandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Gaura He, Gaura He, Gaura He, Gaura He, Gaura He, Gaura He, oh Jaya Radha, Madana Mohan Radha, Madana Mohan Radha, Radha, Madana Mohan Radha, Madana Mohan Radha, Jaya Radha, Govinda Radha, Govinda Radha, Jaya Radha, Govinda Radha, Govinda Radha, Jaya Radha, Gopinata Radha, Gopinata Radha, Jaya Radha, Gopinata Radha, Gopinata Radha, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Radhe Radhe, 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 Radhe. Jai Shri Shri Guru Garangajan Have Giri Hare, Radha Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai, Satchinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai, Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishiman, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishiman, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimat Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimat Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Mahabhagavat Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Saptam Goswami Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Arupanuga Guru Varga ki jai, Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Om Agina Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmaya Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Prabhajantamanapetyam Apaitikrityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tammayatayo Tarabo Binidustam Sarvabhutam Hridim Munimanatoshmi Bhaktya Vihina Aparara Lakshay Shiptascha Karmadi Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Vajami Radam Aravindanetram Smarami Radam Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radam Karana Paratram Tato Mamanastikatena Kapi Tavaivasmi Najivami Tvaivina Iti Vignaya Rate Tvam Nayamam Charantikam. I first of all offer millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times, unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And unto our most respected Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidanandanamine Gauda Shakti Swarupaya Rupanugarayate. Our beloved Saptam Goswami Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. And all our illustrious Rupanuga Guru Varga and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of them. So, coming to our Jaiva-Dharma study, we're on the first 5, I think. So the sound's okay?
Yes.
Pritivitayata Kata
Dharme name chale, Bhagavata kahe sab paripurna chale. As indicated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.12, all the philosophies on earth that are celebrated as dharma are utterly deceptive.
It's interesting how Bhaktivinoda Thakur brings the name of the Srimad Bhagavatam into his first part of his Falshruti. He wrote this Bhagavad Archamarichi Mala. He wrote the Krishna Samhita. He wrote so many doctrines, so many essays on the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is like the foundation. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is just totally immersed in the mood of the Bhagavatam. So it's completely beautiful that he's bringing in the second verse of the first chapter straight away in his Valshruti. All dharmas are utterly deceptive. And then he goes on in the Jaiva-Dharma to talk about the first 12 chapters are basically Nitya and Naimitic Dharma. That's what they're all about. So this is the conception. Completely deceptive. Chale dharma chare kare satya dharma mati chaturvargya tyajitara nitya prema gati.
One should completely abandon such deceptive dharmas and observe his mind in true dharma. In other words, one should give up the fourfold goals of material life, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, and aspire solely for the ultimate destination of Nitya Prem.
Yes, these dharma, artha, kama, moksha are, we talked before, Vedavyas was prominently putting Gyan Kand and Karma Kand in the forefront previously with the Puranas, etc. That was the reason for his despondency that's described in the first canto in the chapters 4, 5, and 6, when Narad comes to give him his darshan. So I was reading something just to confirm this very beautifully in this Bhagavad Archa Marichi Mala. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he wrote this on the order of Swarup Damodar. Swarup Damodar ordered him internally to write about Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan Tattva from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So he writes in this particular verse about the 10 topics of the Bhagavatam, Saraga, Vishago, Stanam, Poshanam, etc. These 10 topics at the end of the second canto in the 10th chapter of the second canto, these 10 topics are described. But then he says the Ashraya. The Ashraya is the 10th topic. And he says, men of true good disposition. Understand that the first 9 topics have been discussed. This Sargo, Vishargo, Sthanam, Poshanam, etc. The first 9 cantos have been discussed in this Bhagavat Purana only in order to present a clear conception to bring us to the 10th canto. This is the reason why they've been written, to bring us to the 10th canto, to bring us to the Prayojan Tattva. This Prayojan Tattva is the 10th canto. So similarly in this Jaiva-Dharma, we have the first 25 chapters, and we've reached the 20th chapter today. But these first chapters are all intended to bring us to the Rasa Tattva section, to the Prayojan Tattva. If we don't really have clearly where we're going, what is the point of practice? It's like we've described how our sadhan has to be focused on Bhav Bhakti. And if we don't know what is Bhav Bhakti, what is the effect or use of our sadhan bhakti? So similarly, like we see in Upadeshamrita, the first verses, Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, etc. But where is it leading? It's leading to the 11th verse. It's leading to Radhakund, Manjari Bhav, in fact. This is, and if we're not aware of the prayojan, if we're not consciously thinking that this is leading to that, it's like when we study the Bhagavatam. If we're thinking Ajamil Charit or Prahlad Charit, if this is the sum and substance of everything, we'll be deceived, because actually the sum and substance is the 10th canto. The sum and substance, the goal, is ultimately to develop our sambandha with Krishna in Vrindavan. This Madhurya Prem, this is what Mahaprabhu is giving. So all of these 9 first cantos are leading to the Ashraya. And the Ashraya is the Prayojan, the beautiful smiling face of the Lord. This is where we're going, to Vrindavan or Goradhan. Same, Gupta Vrindavan. So this, and he's writing here that one should give up these material dharmas. These material dharmas are what are described in different pastimes in the first 9 cantos. Very inspiring for the heart to read about Sattva Guna, etc. The beautiful color, the tapestry of the Bhagavatam. So Prithu Maharaj, so inspiring. Dhruva Maharaj, so inspiring charitas. Mahaprabhu himself would relish these pastimes. But we should know where it's leading to. It's leading to the Ashraya. It's a progression. It's like in our Jaiva-Dharma, we start off with a similar personality, Vaishnava Das or Sannyasi Thakur. He's like a Brahmagyani. And Shukadev was presenting himself as a Brahmagyani. My Gurudeva said this was only for Lila. He was never a Brahmagyani. How could he be a Brahmagyani if he was the parrot of Sri Radhika in his previous birth? No, he wasn't a Brahmagyani. But for the sake of the strength or authenticity of the Bhagavatam, he's presented as a Brahmagyani. He wouldn't come out of the womb for 16 years. And when he did, he just left the home, yam prabhajantam anapatyam apratikritam. He just left completely the home and all behind, etc. So, and it's demonstrating in the Bhagavatam how this Brahmagyani was attracted back from the forest to relish the sweetness of Krishna's pastime. What were the verses that were chanted by those wood collectors to attract Shukadev Goswami? Aho Bakiyam Stanakala Kutam, Baharapita Nadapara. All these beautiful verses describing the personality of Krishna. And then Shukadev came running back. Oh, tell me more about this. Tell me more. What is this personality? Similarly with Vaishnava Das, with Sannyasi Thakur. He's seeing the Vaishnava in Mathura. Then he comes to Godrum, meets Prem Das Babaji. And he just wants to hear about the personal aspect, like the 4 Kumaras. They managed somehow to, they were Brahmagyanis, and yet they smelt the beautiful Tulsi of the Krishna's lotus feet. They were transformed entirely. So this 10th canto, and similarly the last 14 chapters of this. So we are on a journey here. We are going through Sambandha and Abhideya. Today we're still in the Abhideya Tattva. Yesterday, 19th chapter was also the Abhideya. 19, 20, 21, 3 chapters are all basically the Abhideya. Prior to that, it's Sambandha Gyan. We'll examine it when we begin the chapter. We'll finish this Valshruti, then just look at the structure, the way that Bhaktivinoda Thakur has constructed this Bhagavatam. It's very scientific. It's all leading to a perfect conclusion. It helps us have more faith in the content, etc., when we see the direction of exactly where he's going with this. Okay. Amitva mimam sabrame nija jate buddhi nirvishesha brahma gyan nahi chitta shruti.
Those who are deluded identify themselves with matter. That is their error. However, one cannot be purified of such delusion by endeavors for nirvishesh brahmagyan.
This is still, he's talking about Sambandha, yes.
Ivichitrata hina
Hina
ha
hale
nirvishesh
nirvishesh hoy
hoy kala
kala
saimatulya
simatulya
seya aprakrata.
pratanai.
The Mayavadi thinks Sri Krishna to be subject to the limitations of time, such as birth and death, and considers that he is not transcendental. Thus, he rejects Sri Bhagavan's Vichitrata, astonishing characteristics, paraphernalia, qualities, and Leela. Through
Mamai,
this,
yeah, go on.
through this vicious attempt, he is left with the philosophy of Nirvishesh Brahm.
Krishna says in the Gita, what is it, the 15th chapter, Mamai Vamsa Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, that we are directly manifesting from that son of Krishna through his Shakti. We're all manifesting from Shakti, Chit Shakti. We've discussed all of this. We feel confident in our education to date. We've reached the 20th chapter, so all of us listening to these chapters should feel confident of the particular siddhantas that we've covered. Kandakyana hoye
Hoy
dharma
dharma
ache
ache
sunishchaya
sunishchaya prakrita
prakriti hoyle
kahu
kahu aprakrtanaya.
aprakratanaya. Such base and contemptible gyan which arises out of an attempt to dismember the divine form of Bhagavan is only fit to be rejected. It is prakrita, materialistic, and should never be given credence as aprakrita dharma.
Yes, we should know this distinction clearly. So we've come to our 20th chapter. Today is Ekadashi, so we'll see how we go. So I just want to recap a little bit before we actually go into this 20th chapter. If you look on page 282 at the verse Amnaya Praha Tattvam Harim Iha, and you see the 9 prameyas. So where are we coming from here with these 9 prameyas? So the first is the praman, not the prameya. So that's the evidence. And then we have already been through this Paramatatva was discussed in chapter 13. It would be nice if somebody feels inspired, they could make a diagram of the different chapters and the different prameyas that are included in each chapter and how the construction of this dasmula is set. So in the second, it's the first prameya. This Paramatattva is described in the 13th chapter. And then we have 2 prameyas described in the 14th chapter. This is where we're coming up to. 2 prameyas, the Sarva Shaktiman and Akila Rasamrita Sindhu.
Maharaj, actually, Babaji says this Akila Rasamrita Sindhu, I will discuss this later, right?
But he mentions it. He gives an idea of Shri Radhika being the Shakti Tattva, the supreme Tattva. So this Rasabdim is discussed at the very end. This is where the question comes, remember? Rajanath, he's asking, well, if Radhika is doing everything, what is Krishna doing? this
Shakti Tattva.
yes, that Krishna has freedom and free will. This swatantra tantrita
Swaicha.
and swaicha mayita, this freedom and free will. So this is at the end of the 14th chapter. So this is putting Sri Radhika's ontological Siddhantic position very clear. So this Rasa Tattva is touched on in that 14th chapter. And then the 15th chapter is Vivinamsa Tattva. And the 16th chapter is Jiva Tattva. These are two pramayas in themselves, because these pramayas here, we can see them listed. This
Baddha
5,
Jivas
6,
and-
and 7. Yes, so this is 15, 16, and 17. These three pramayas have been discussed in those chapters. And then in the 18th chapter, we have Achintya Veda Tattva. Now, all of these pramayas, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8, that are listed here on this page 282, it's all in the category of Sambandha Gyan. It's all about Krishna and his relationship with the jivas. Who are the jivas? Jivas are Anuchit. Krishna is Purnachit or Vibhuchit. So it's very clearly, this is all Sambandha Gyan. Now we've come into the realm of Abhideya Tattva. And this begins from the chapter 19, when we were discussing Abhideya means the method to achieve. So we discussed bhakti, we discussed Anyabilasita Sunyam, what is it, Kritisadya Bhavetsadya, and then Kleshagni Shubhada. We discussed all these aspects of sadhan bhakti in the 19th chapter. So this is Abhideya. In the 20th chapter, we're going to discuss the angas of bhakti. This is also Abhideya. In the 21st chapter, we're going to discuss the angas of Raganuga. We're going to discuss, this is all in the area of Abhideya. And then we come to the 22nd chapter, and this is the Prayojan Tattva. This Krishna Priti, Bhav Bhakti, is going to be described. So this is the Dasmula, this is the map of the Dasmula. So we should be something familiar with where we're going, where we've been, etc., and how we're progressing through the whole of the Jaiva-Dharma. In the first 12 chapters, it was principally making a platform so that we could discuss more in depth these Siddhantas. And now these Siddhantas are going in very closely. And then they're going to be more or less left behind when we cross over that. It's like almost a curtain. You go through another realm of Nam Tattva. 3 chapters are going to be with Nam Tattva. Nam Tattva itself, then Nam Aparad, and Nam Abhas. These 3 chapters, 23, 24, and 25. And then from those chapters, now it's as if we're somewhat purified. If we've been immersing ourselves in these teachings of Jaiva-Dharma, we've gone through Sambandha and the platform in the first 12 chapters, and we've gone through the Praman in the 13th chapter, and then we've gone through the, 7 Pramayas in the Dasamula, and now we're doing the Abhideya, and then we'll come to what is Bhav Bhakti in the 22nd chapter, and then Nam Tattva, and then we come into the last 14 chapters are the Prayojan, is Rasa Tattva, described, really opened out in absolute detail. So what hasn't Bhaktivinoda Thakur discussed? He's covered the entire ground from the very beginning to the very end. The Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan, completely. And he's also discussing, like in the first chapter, for example, he discusses all 3. He discusses Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan in the first chapter. So he's giving us this constant repetition. And this actually, just for your information, is what the Srimad Bhagavat Arka Marichimala is all about. It's taking from the Srimad Bhagavatam the Sambandha, Abhideya, and the Prayojan. And I've just shared with you that he's saying that this Ashraya, this last topic of the Bhagavatam, is what really the Bhagavatam wants to give. Because this Madhurya Prem is what satisfied Vyasadev's heart. Vyasadev's heart was disturbed. He was sitting in Samya Prasha, and Narad came. Or why are you despondent? You have written so many scriptures, etc. And then Narad could see, but you have not written about Mother Yashoda binding Krishna. You have not written about the gopis. You have not written, any of this has not come. So because of Mahaprabhu's influence in the coming ages, then he was able to actually present these truths, even though these truths weren't so clearly understood before Mahaprabhu came. It's like Shukadev Goswami is telling us about Parakya. He's demonstrating it. Even Parikshit asks in that 33rd chapter, oh, how can the Supreme Lord manifest, and dance with other men's wives like this? This is shocking. So it's mentioned there, but how many people could actually enter into a full appreciation of that until Mahaprabhu comes? So we see the synchronicity of everything, see it as it's unfolding. I think that makes it very much more simple for us to access, because it's a clear, direct, it's as clear as the sun. It's brilliant. Where it's all going, where it's coming from, what is the need what is that need we need to purify within ourselves to reach the adhikar, the ability, eligibility to receive and understand these things. So now we're at the 20th chapter. So now we're still very much in Abhideya Tattva. 3 chapters, 19, 20, and 21 is Abhideya Tattva. 22 is going to come into Prayojan Tattva, which is indicating Bhav Bhakti. So see where we're going. It's very clear. I think if we see it methodically like this, especially for Western-minded, logical people, then it gives us some sort of handle, so to speak, of how, and then we can move deeper into the moods, etc., and the individual teachings that are within each chapter, because so many teachings are here. We're going through it actually very quickly. We could spend 1 year on one chapter if we wanted to, really and truly. Every sentence of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's is loaded with all kinds of indications that gradually will become more appreciative of. So now we're in the 20th chapter. So we can.
Chapter 20, Prameya, Abhideya, Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti.
Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti. This is what we're going to discuss. The Sadhan Bhakti for Vaidhi, which means the 64 angas of Bhakti. This is what's going to be opened out very beautifully. And all of us, whether we're Raganugas, whether we're very much eager to come into that Vrindavan consciousness, still we have to be familiar with these 64 angas. It is sahajya if we think we should neglect this. We should not neglect any of the rules and regulations at any time, because the rules and regulations hold us back from animalistic, material, sensual pleasures, etc. That's what they do. It's like it gives us a sattvic opportunity. These are very important. Okay.
Vrajanath and Vijay Kumar returned to Vrajanath's home before noon. Vrajanath's mother was waiting for them and lovingly served them sumptuous prasad. On completion of the meal, uncle and nephew had affectionate discussions, and Vrajanath gradually explained to his respected maternal uncle all the instructions that he had previously heard from Babaji Maharaj. When Vijay Kumar heard these nectarian instructions, he became blissful and said, "You are most fortunate. Sat Sangha is obtained only by great fortune. You have obtained the very rare association of a great saint like Babaji Mahashai, and he has given you substantial instruction about the highest goal of life."
We hear this all the way through. Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha. Bhaktivinoda Thakur keeps on making this point. Without the association of the pure sadhus, we cannot make progress. We cannot make progress without coming in contact with something that is transcendental. If we're just spinning around in material conceptions with materially minded people, transcendence can never manifest. These books, of course, are transcendental, but unless we have the bhakta who has understood these truths, how can we have realization of these? It's one thing to read and listen, but it's another complete consideration to have realization. We're hungry for realization of these truths, not just um, become armchair philosophers or anything of that nature.
Paramartha. One who hears Bhakti Katha or Hari Katha certainly attains good fortune and well being. But if these topics are heard from the mouth of a great personality, then good fortune comes especially quickly.
Mm.
You are learned in all the Shastras, and your scholarship in Nyaya Shastra is especially unparalleled. You were born in a Vedic Brahmin family and are not without wealth. All these opulences now appear as your ornaments. The reason for this is that you have taken shelter of the lotus feet of Vaishnavas and acquired a taste for Krishna's Leela Katha.
Beautiful eulogy of Brajanath. This is the glorification of Brajanath. This is his qualification. This has to be included here because Brajanath and Vijay Kumar are going to go very quickly on this path. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has picked two jewels to be the heroes of the pastime, so to speak. So we're going to see if you are born with these good Sukritis and so on, actually how quickly you can progress in bhakti.
As they discussed the supreme goal of life in this way, Vrajanath's mother entered and said to Vijay Kumar, "Brother, it is so long since you were here. Please encourage Vrajanath to become a grahastha, householder. From his behavior, I am afraid that he may become some kind of sadhu. Several people have come with proposals for marriage, but he has taken a vow not to get married. My mother in law has also endeavored in this regard, but he was not convinced."
These references to the pastime, the story, brings us into the material realm for us to appreciate the balance that has to be maintained through our practice. We all have different material considerations in our life. We're not able just to completely devote our life to this path. So Brajanath also and Vijay Kumar, they also have different um, activities that they're performing in life.
After listening to his sister, Vijayakumar replied, "I will stay here for about 15 days and reflect carefully on this matter and then inform you my decision. Now please go inside the house." Vrajanath's mother left, and Vijayakumar and Vrajanath again engaged in talks about the supreme goal of life. The whole day passed like this. The following day, when they had taken their meal, Vijayakumar said, "Vrajanath, this evening let us go to Shiva Sangan and hear from Babaji Maharaj the explanation of 64 Angas of Bhakti given by Sri Rupa Goswami. Hey, Vrajanath, may I achieve association like yours birth after birth." Now, Babaji Mahashai has described two paths of sadhan bhakti, Vaidi Marg and Rag Marg. Frankly speaking, we are actually qualified for Vaidi Dharma. Thus, we should understand Vaidi Dharma thoroughly and began to practice sadhan before hearing instructions on Rag Marg.
Mhm. This is the sequence. This is the sequence.
During his last talk, Srila Babaji Maharaj gave us instruction about the ninefold Navada process of bhakti. However, I don't understand how I should begin Navada bhakti. Today, we should understand this subject more deeply.
Yes, we need to have this Navada Bhakti um, compounded, so to speak. It needs to be deeply, thoroughly understood, the baseline. Because when higher transcendental mercy actually comes, if we have our platform very solid, we're not going to be thrown around, etc. We'll be able to contain these truths. It's like if we're chanting sufficiently and some realizations come, we'll be able to hold them, we'll be able to retain them. But if we're not practicing, if we're not understanding these things, very quickly they'll just go away. We won't be able to retain these truths. This is the fact.
As they continued on in this way, it became evening. The sun's rays had left the earth and were playing with high branches of the trees. Vijay Kumar and Rajanath left home and arrived at Shiva's Angan again. There they offered their Dandavat Pranam to the assembled Vaishnavas and then entered the elderly Babaji's kutir. Seeing how eager the Bhaktas were to learn, Babaji became very pleased. With great love, he embraced them and offered them each an asan. They both offered their Dandavat Pranam to Babaji Mahashay's feet and sat down. After they had chatted for a short time, Vijay Kumar said, Prabhu, we are certainly giving you much trouble. However, you mercifully accept it because of your affection for the Bhaktas. Today, we would like to hear from you about the 64 different angas of bhakti that Sri Rupa Goswami has described. If you think that we are qualified, kindly tell us, so that we can easily realize Shuddha
You
Bhakti.
see, Rupa Goswami, he's given us everything. He's given us the highest conceptions, and he's given us the Abhideya, and he's given us the very Vaidhi Bhakti also. He has delineated these 64 angas of bhakti very clearly. It's him who has done this. We owe everything to Rupa Goswami. And when I say like that, it means that everything in our line is coming contained with the treasure of Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami is coming from the direct lotus feet of Srimati Radhika. So these are all coming from Sri Radhika out of her boundless compassion to encourage the conditioned souls to actually take significant shelter of Mahaprabhu. This will be the success for Radhika. This is all Radhika's success. Rupa
Babaji
Goswami.
smiled and
Oh,
said, Firstly, first listen attentively. I will recite the 64 angas of bhakti as described by Sri Rupa Goswami, the first 10 of which are the basic preliminary angas. Number 1. Taking shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Guru, Guru Padashraya. 2. Taking initiation and instruction from Sri Guru, Guru Diksha and Shiksha. Number 3. Serving Sri Guru with faith, Vishwasa Purvak Guru Seva.
why is Guru so prominent? Because Guru is connecting us with his Guru, and his Guru is connecting us with his Guru. And it's going all the way back to Rupa Goswami, to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu directly, to Sri Radhika. Unless that line is sealed, how can the current from Sri Radhika manifest? How can it come down unless the line is clear? So, in our um, parampara, this Bhagavat parampara, it's actually a Shiksha parampara. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Diksha Guru, Vipin Bihari, is not the personality that he glorifies. Principally, he glorifies Jagannath Das Babaji as being his clear Prayojan Guru, that Guru who is taking him to Krishna, that is in a Shiksha line. So Diksha or Shiksha can be accepted, but the current has to come down very strongly. And this is where we are. It's so important. Guru, first three, all about Guru. Actually, the first 10 are about, because they're connecting us to the source. If we're not connected to the source, then we're going to speculate.
Number 4. Following the path outlined by sadhus. 5. Inquiry about Dharma or the procedure of bhajan. 6. Renouncing all enjoyment of sense objects for Krishna's sake. 7. Residing in dhams such as Dwaraka and near to holy rivers such as the Ganga and Yamuna.
I don't know why it's put Dwarka in
Hmm.
there. I, you know, Dwarka is quite different from Braj or Gordagaon.
8. Accepting only as much money and other facilities as are required to sustain one's life.
In other words, not being involved in material activities or useless endeavors.
9. respecting Ekadashi, Janmashtami, and other days related to Hari. 10. Offering respects to Ashwatha, Amalaki, and other sacred trees. The next 10 Angas take the form of prohibitions, abandoning, abandoning all association of those who are averse to Krishna. 12. Not accepting unqualified people as disciples. 13. Renouncing pretentious endeavors such as pompous festivals, etc. 14. Refraining from reading and reciting many books and making novel interpretations of Shastra.
All these are going to be explained in the chapter, so I'm not
15.
interrupting.
Avoiding miserly behavior in practical dealings. 16. Not being influenced by emotions such as lamentation. 17. Not disrespecting or blaspheming the Devatas. 18. Not harassing any jiva. 19. Abandoning full Abandoning fully offences in seva parad, and in chanting of Sri Harinam, Namaparad. 20. Not tolerating blasphemy of Bhagavan and his bhaktas. You should understand these 20 angas to be the entrance to the temple of bhakti. And the first,
Entrance. This is like the threshold of bhakti. They're not directing you directly to Krishna. It's not about Krishna's form, qualities, etc. It's not inspiring you directly to focus on your relationship, this sambandha with Krishna. Because Sharanagat itself, just like in the Gita, it takes us to the threshold of bhakti. Bhagavad Gita itself doesn't take us into bhakti, it takes us to the threshold, the entrance. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making it very clear these first 20 will bring us to the entrance of bhakti. Actually, bhakti begins with the prayojan, when the heart starts to melt in attraction to Krishna, when these stages are, beyond nishta of ruchi, asakti, and bhav begin to be appreciated and understood. What are these stages? Until we're really focusing on what is bhav bhakti, then our connection with Krishna hasn't really begun. It's just peripheral. It's just about me and my surrender. That's what it means when we're just focusing on Sharanagat, Sharanagat, Sharanagat. It's much more than that. That's the very threshold.
you should understand these 20 angas to be the entrance to the temple of bhakti. And the first three, taking shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Guru, taking Diksha and Shiksha from Guru, and serving him with faith are the main activities. After this are the following: 21. Adopting the outward signs such as tilak of a Vaishnava. 22. Wearing the syllables of Sri Harinam on one's body. 23. Accepting the remnants of garments, garlands, and so on that have been offered to the deity. 24. Dancing in front of the deity. 25. Offering Dandavat Pranam to Sri Guru, Vaishnava, and Bhagavan. 26. Respectfully rising from one seat on having darshan of Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas and greeting them. 27. Following the deity in procession. 28. Visiting the temples of Sri Bhagavan. 29. Circumambulating parikrama of the temple. 30. Performing deity worship, puja and archana. 31. Serving Sri Krishna like a king, paricharya. 32. Singing. 33. Performing congregational chanting of Sri Krishna's Nam Sankirtan. 34. Performing japa of the Gayatri mantras and the three sandhyas. After first performing Achman. 35. Offering submissive prayers or entreaties. 36. Reciting bhajans or mantras in praise of Sri Krishna. 37. Relishing Bhagavat Prasad. 38. Drinking Sri Charnamrit, the nectar that has been washed Sri Krishna's lotus feet. 39. Smelling the fragrance of incense, garlands, and so on that have been offered to Sri Krishna. 40. Touching the deity. 41. Viewing darshan of Sri Murti with devotion. 42. Having darshan of arati and festivals, etc. 43. Hearing about the names, forms, qualities, pastimes, etc. of Sri Hari. 44. Always anticipating Krishna's mercy. 45. Contemplating Smaranam of Sri Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. 46. Meditation. 47. Servitorship. 48. Friendship. 49. Self surrender. 50. Offering one's own very dear items to Krishna. 51. Incessantly performing activities for Krishna's pleasure. 52. Full surrender, Sharanagati unto Sri Krishna's lotus feet. 53. Serving Tulsi Devi. 54. Respecting Srimad Bhagavatam and other Bhakti Shastras. 55. Hearing and singing the glories of Sri Hari's Dham and his appearance places such as Mathura and circumambulating them. 56. Serving the Vaishnavas. 57. Celebrating festivals related to Sri Krishna in gatherings of sadhus according to one's means. 58. Observing the vow of Chaturmasya and especially Niyama Seva in the month of Kartik. 59. Celebrating the festival of Sri Krishna's appearance day. 60. Shraddhaya Shri Murtir Sevana, serving the deity with faith. 61. Bhagavat Shravana, relishing the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam in the association with Rasik Vaishnavas. 62. Sadhu Sangha, associating with bhaktas who are of the same mood, affectionate and more advanced than oneself. Swajatiya, Sunigdha and Sadhu Sangha. 63. Nam Sankirtan, loud congregational chanting of Sri Krishna's Nam. 64. Mathura Vasa, residing in dhams like Mathura and Vrindavan.
So Rupa Goswami has taken the trouble to enumerate these 64 angas for us to imbibe in our lives. We really have to read them through and to appreciate how much am I following these 64 angas, and just to be always constantly aware of these 64 angas, to be aware of what is the path, and then to gradually incorporate it naturally into our lives. When that happens, we leave it behind. When that happens, there's no need to go over it again and again. But first of all, that impression has to be there to follow it. It's like when you're learning a musical instrument, you learn all the notes and so on. But once you learn to play the instrument, you don't think about the notes anymore. But always they are there as the platform, the foundation. So this is the Abhideya and in Vaidhi Bhakti. And for some Vaidhi sadhaks, they will constantly be referring to these until they have them fully imbibed within the consciousness. So you never transgress this.
Although the last five angas have been described at the end, they are nonetheless the most important. They are also referred to as Pancha Anga Bhakti, fivefold devotional service. All these angas are to be followed with body, sense, and the inner faculty, mind, heart, and soul, in the worship of Krishna.
Yes, we never minimize these. We never think, as I said before, this is just Vaidhi Bhakti or something like that. Never ever do that. These have to be absorbed by the highest practitioner. He will fully imbibe all of these angas. Nothing will be omitted. So don't minimize it, anybody.
Vijay, Prabhu, please give us some detailed instructions regarding accepting shelter at the lotus feet of a spiritual master, Sri Guru Padashraya, Babaji. An aspiring disciple should first attain the eligibility, adhikar, to perform one pointed devotional service to Sri Krishna, Ananya Krishna Bhakti. He should learn the essential truths about Sri Krishna, Krishna Tattva, from a genuine Guru by taking shelter at the Guru's feet. The living entity only attains the qualification of Krishna Bhakti when he develops Shraddha, This Shraddha is that firm faith that is awakened in relation to Sri Hari as a result of hearing Hari Katha from the lips of pure saints or sadhus.
Shraddha, Shabde, Vishwasa
Vishwasakoy
Koi,
Shuddha
Sudhavita,
Nishchay.
Nishchoy. This is the first step, Sharanagati and Shraddha. And this Shraddha is always unfolding. It's never the sadhak considers, oh yes, my Shraddha is strong. Actually, moment by moment, the Shraddha. Otherwise, how can these astonishing appreciations manifest? If I'm thinking that I'm fluent in this and I'm confident of that, then I put some sort of restriction there. It's got to be moving, it's got to be ecstatic, not static. So this Shraddha is always unfolding. Sharanagati itself is always unfolding. Always I'm becoming more surrendered to Krishna's arrangements. I'm under, appreciating more and more. It has to be that mood of to be dynamic. If there ever comes a sort of complacency, on, oh yes, I'm knowing all these things. Sometimes we meet sort of very educated Brahmins or something of that nature, and they always say, oh yes, I'm knowing all that. Then they can't know anything else. Then you can't actually share with them anything astonishing, because they're in the mindset that actually, and they perhaps have studied so many scriptures and so on, but without that childlike innocence in the sense of our appreciation of our relationship with Krishna, how can this bhakti be dynamic? It'll just be static. We have to keep that ever fresh, vichitrata, we discussed in the Falshruti, this astonishing achintya bhav, chamatkara, this astonishing mood. All the gopis are astonished. Sri Radhika is astonished. Krishna is astonished by his own beauty. All the eternal parakars, they're astonished all the time. In Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Lila, they're constantly being astonished. But you don't get astonished when you start to think you know everything. If you have that mindset, because this can happen as you get older, as you start to become more fluent with various scriptures and so on. You can start to have the abhiman, oh yes, I'm knowing. And you do know so many things, but you don't know the first ingredient of humility, because this requires the greatest human. Who is the greatest, who is the most humble personality? It's Sri Radhika. Her eyes are described like moving like wagtails. They're always moving in astonished appreciation. Where is Krishna? How is Krishna? What is Krishna? It's always um, uh, alive, so much dynamic. This is the nature of Shuddha Bhakti. Shraddha and Sharanagati are almost the same tattva.
The living entity only attains the qualification of Krishna Bhakti when he develops Shraddha. This Shraddha is that firm faith that is awakened in relation to Sri Hari as a result of hearing Hari Katha from the lips of pure saints or sadhus. Association with saints is obtained by the influence of spiritual merits, Sukruti, accrued in previous birth. Along with Shraddha, the mood of surrender, Sharanagati, will also appear to some extent. Shraddha, firm faith, and Sharanagati, surrender, are almost the same principal tattva. To be able to perform Krishna Bhakti is certainly the topmost attainment in this world. Therefore, the only person eligible for Ananya Bhakti, one pointed devotion, is he who has developed strong faith in these convictions. I will perform any activity favorable to Krishna Bhakti as my duty and abandon any activity unfavorable to it. Krishna is my sole protector and I accept him as my exclusive maintainer. I am certainly wretched and destitute, and my independent desire is not beneficial for me, whereas exclusively following Krishna's desire is beneficial for me in every way.
Mm.
When the jiva attains this qualification, he becomes anxious to hear instructions on bhakti, and upon finding Sadguru, a bona fide spiritual master, he accepts the shelter at his lotus feet. That is to say, he becomes the disciple of such a guru and accepts instruction, siksha, on bhakti from him. Tad vignatam sa gurum evabhigachyate sammit paniya shrotriya brahmanishtam. Mundaka Upanishad. In order to obtain knowledge of the supreme absolute reality, Sri Bhagavan, Bhagavad Vastu, the sincere soul must approach a Sadguru carrying firewood for sacrifice in his hands. In other words, he must approach Sadguru with transcendental faith in his heart and surrender to him in every respect with body, mind, and words. And with all the humility at his command, the qualification of a bona fide guru is that he is well versed in the Vedas as realize the absolute truth, Brahma Jnana, and is exclusively devoted to the service of Bhagavan. Acharyam Acharyavan Purusho Veda, Chandogya Upanishad. He who takes shelter of a bona fide guru, that is, a guru whose conduct is proper, comes to know that Parabrahma. The characteristics and symptoms of a bona fide spiritual master, Sadguru, and a bona fide disciple, Sat Shishya, are given in detail in Hari Bhakti Vilas. In essence, only a person with pure character and firm faith is qualified to become a disciple, and only that person who is endowed with unalloyed bhakti, who knows the signs of devotional service, Bhakti Tattva with, and who is of spotless character, simple, without greed, free from the influence of Mayavad philosophy, and expert in all devotional activities, is genuinely qualified to be Guru.
So we should remember where these descriptions are in the chapter. So if we want to reference this at any time and you want to bring these points out, because these are all powerful points that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making here. Who is Sadguru? And who is Shishya? Who is Sad Shishya? What is the pure disciple also? What is his qualification? So this is mentioned here very, very clearly. So this should be deeply appreciated. I think I want to leave it here. We're a little bit over our time, but because it just gets thicker and thicker and more relishable actually as it goes on, describing these first 10 angas of bhakti, of the 64 qualities. So I think we're fine for today. So plenty to consider and reflect upon. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Jaiva-Dharma ki jai, Guru Pradashraya ki jai, Anantakoda Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhaveda Patitanam Bhavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha.